Namaste and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sathology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means the study or science. Sathology means a science of truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means it comes from the root Sanskrit word myth, which means a fake lie imagination. Many other words come mithya, mithyachar. Many words are made from the root words. Just like in any etymological science, Sanskrit is also based on that. In fact, the science of etymology comes from Sanskrit, sandhi vichhed, joining and dividing words. And in fact, most of the things you can learn from there. British learned the wrong way. They consider divide and rule as a political philosophy, which is actually hurt them in the long run. Western academics have played havoc with the global history. We all know that, and we've been saying it for more than a year. They have misinterpreted local languages, demeaned local cultures, and destroyed native cultures. And that's why there is a big pushback. So we neither support political movements nor oppose, but we really want academic honesty, and the right history needs to be taught. I have a very, very special guest, and her book Mahabharat Unraveled has unraveled many people. And my other two books, Narada, The Making of a Statesman, and Yudhishthir, both based on Mahabharata. So therefore, we have very similar views in many areas. Therefore, the discussion goes very one-sided. So if you want to oppose it, you can oppose it on YouTube. Without delay, let us welcome Shri Emmy Ganatra.
Thank you, Aditya. Namaste, everybody. Glad to be back here again.
No, the last video on Karna was eye-opener for many people and eye-closer for some people, because they deliberately want to shut it off. They want to go back to the dreamy Disneyland world. By the way, Disneyland is just 1 hour from my house. So it's now coming to Draupadi. It's again a what do you call it? Can of roses for us. And for some people, it's a can of worms. And I know the discussion is going to go very explosive on this one. So Draupadi is considered one of the women who are, just by thinking of them, people become purified. That's the power of Draupadi. So what is your view on an opening line? How do you see Draupadi?
So Draupadi is Tej Punja. She's like the ideal woman that can be. And I will use the word which, in fact, Yudhishthir uses for Draupadi. She says that Draupadi is a lady, the kind of a lady a man desires for a successful and a happy Grihastha life. And the actual words he uses is Yadrashi Dharmartha Kamartha Siddhim Icchet Naraha Tatstriyam. She's a lady, she's the kind of a lady a man aspires for a fulfilling married life. So that is Draupadi. And that is why the title of the chapter in the book Mahabharat Unraveled, the title of the chapter for Draupadi is The Marriage That Tied. Draupadi is a lady who has ensured that the 5 Pandavas stick together. They were together, no wonder. But she is the one because of which they always stuck together. And I'll say one more thing before we can go on and discuss other stuff. Just to show how highly Vyasdev ji regards Draupadi. So in the end, when we know that, Dwarka, the destruction of Dwarka happens and the Yadavs kill each other, and Krishna is sad looking at all that, he tells his Sarathi that it seems like my time has come. Now you go and call Arjun and ask him to take the women away, women and whoever is alive, ask him to come and take them away to Hastinapur or Indraprasth, wherever, because then by the time it's all one. So when it comes, by that time, Krishna has left his body. So he was shot by a hunter, a Bira. But anyway, so he's left his body at that time. And Arjun comes and sees that Krishna is dead. And he's talking to Vasudev, who's the father of Krishna. And Arjun says, now with Krishna gone, it seems to me that even our time has come. That even we have to now go. Our work is ended on planet Earth. It's our time to go. Because Krishna, that is Vasudev Krishna, we 5 Pandavas, and Krishna, that is Draupadi. So Draupadi's name is actually Krishna. So we five Pandavas, Krishna and Krishna, we are like one Atma in six bodies. Sorry, seven bodies. So same Atma in different bodies. That is what we are. And hence now that Krishna has left, it's time for us to leave. And the point to note here is that the Pandavas are married to other women as well. They all have multiple wives. But Krishna, Draupadi is the only common wife they have, but they have their individual other wives as well. He's not saying this for anybody else. He's saying this only and only for Draupadi. So that is the power of Draupadi. She is this gracious, amazing, powerful, strong lady that, as Yudhishthir says, a man aspires for a fulfilling Grahastha life.
Great opening lines, great discussion. Now, before we start off, some people, they say Draupadi has a, the Draupadi's appearance is from the fire. And generally people connect her to Punjab, which is, Mahabharata is known as Panchanad Desh. Panchanad, it's not, so later on became Punjab and Punjab. So why people connect her to Punjab first, and then we'll come to her place of birth actually?
I think because she's called Panchali, so people think it's like Panchanad and coming from there, but it's not. It's coming from Panchal, not from Panchanad, and they are on different sides.
Different sides, one is on this side of Yamuna, one is another side of Yamuna. So, so the location is in Uttar Pradesh, Farrukhabad, Kampilya. That's the location, Drupad Desh. So again, she is from UP. Again, people have a problem because earlier there was no such Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh. These are all divisions by the British, but they view all these states as completely different nowadays. They just Hindi, Punjabi is just a variation of Hindi, slightly variation, but Devanagari is written Devanagari still, like Marathi. So they completely separate out Draupadi from there. Like general impression they want to give that the best looking people, that's again driven by the Bollywood, the best looking people, the most courageous people are coming from Punjab. Nowadays they won't do that because the drugs are also coming from there. So what is your view on that, like to debunk this myth of people?
Well, so we know she's from Panchal, and it is told that she's from Panchal, and she's extremely beautiful. There is no doubt about it at all. Yeah. So I mean, saying that yahan se sundar hai ya wahan se people are beautiful, I don't know. That's stereotyping. I can't really say that. But Draupadi for sure is extremely beautiful. So beautiful that before, so when the Lakh Palace, the Varna incident has happened, and the five Pandavas and Kunti, they are in the over a year of Vanvas again, and then they are hiding. They're hiding because Varna Duryodhan tried to burn them. So they're hiding, and then they're staying in the forest, and then in that Brahman's home near Ek Chakrinagar. All that is happening. At that time, one other Brahman, he comes and he tells he tells Kunti and the five sons about this Swayamvar which is going to happen in Kampilya, in this Desh of Drupad, which is called Panchal. And he is explaining to them about this daughter of Drupad, who's Krishna. And the description he gives about how she looks, he says that she's like the incarnation of Devi herself. That beautiful she is. That is her power. That is her luster. Her tej is that she's that beautiful, and he's describing her in detail. Only just listening to this description, the Pandavas are in awe. They have already fallen for her, everybody. And Kunti sees all her sons that they have, totally been mesmerized just hearing about this beautiful lady. And she says, yeah, we should all go to Kampilya and see who this girl is for whom the Swayamvar is happening. Okay, anyway, so this is one description of Draupadi that happens. Then they all go to Kampilya, and there the actual Swayamvar happens. At that time, of course, the Pandavas are in disguise, right? They are all dressed like Brahmins. And they have just gone there to see for now, because Drupad has this challenge set up that there is a target inside something which is strung free in the air. So it's like very high up there, and it's like strung in the air, and the person who has to hit the target has to aim for that target in the thing which has been moving. So that way, nobody else is able to do it. Nobody else is even able to tie the bow like this, to string the bow. Anyway, so Arjun does it, and everybody at that time thinks, "Arey, ye to Brahman hi hai." And anyways, he wins her, and we know all of that. And she's taken home. So when she's taken home, and we know this thing where Kunti doesn't know, and the brothers say that Sametya Bhungshwa, all of you, this is Dhiksha you have, so share. And this is now a problem, because how can they share a woman like that? And they're discussing what to do, because they have two options. One is Arjun won her, and he could have married her because he won the Swayamvar. The other option was Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir was the eldest brother. So being the eldest one, he should have married first. But Yudhishthir is looking at everybody, all the Pandavas who are sitting there, and Draupadi. So Draupadi is looking at them, they are looking at Draupadi, and it's a beautiful description. Everybody's looking at each other, or rather, the brothers are looking at her, she's looking at them. And the word used is for the brothers in Sampretya Indriya Gamaha. So they are all, their Indriyas, their senses are all agitated just looking at her. They are so charmed, so enchanted by her beauty. Draupadi at that point. And looking at that, Yudhishthir says that Sarvesham Bharyam Bhavishyati. She will be the wife of all of us. Because he knows that if anyone would have would have put their claim on Draupadi, it would have been dividing them all together. And Draupadi doesn't mind it at all. She's very happy with that arrangement. So that is Draupadi.
And before the marriage of Draupadi, Vyasdev also explains about Draupadi. And after the marriage, Narad Muni comes in to make sure that brothers don't fight, right? Both of things happen. And some people have the opinion that just she was divided randomly, but people do not know that the Drupad, Drishtyadumna, Yudhishthir, and Vyasadev calls them privately to a separate place, and they discuss. It is also mentioned in Mahabharata. If anyone reads it, it's also mentioned there in detail. And I think you must have also covered in your book, and I've also covered in Yudhishthir, the Prana Dharma. So it was not just blindly decided. Everyone was consulted. And then, Drishtyadumna and Drupad were very agitated that now they were knowing that you are Pandavas and you are Yudhishthir, and why Yudhishthir would take such a dharmic step according to him. And so what is that incident? If you like to throw some light there with all the viewers.
So, as Yudhishthir says that she Sarvesham Bharyam Bhavishyati, she will be a wife to all of us. And Draupadi doesn't mind it. Kunti is okay with it. All the brothers are okay with it. Nobody minds it at all. Yeah. So it's like Mia Bibi Razi, kya karega Kazi. All the husbands are happy with the decision. Draupadi is happy, and they start living their lives. Now, when Drupad and Drishtyadumna, the brother and father of Draupadi, they come to know of this, they are very upset because. And Drupad says it. He says, we have seen that one husband can have multiple wives, but we have never seen that one wife has multiple husbands. So by doing this, you are putting my daughter into sin. You're putting her. She will get pap if this is the arrangement you do. So this is not fair on her at all. Why don't you marry her, or why don't Arjun can marry her, or any one of the brothers? But don't do this, because this is against the tradition, against parampara, so you shouldn't be doing it. And Yudhishthir explains to them that it is not commonly seen that a woman has multiple husbands. However, it is not prohibited by any shastra. And second, there are precedences to it, even if not common. And he gives two examples. So there is this lady called Jatila, who's married to multiple brothers, and there's one more. So he gives two such examples from Shastras themselves, which show that one lady was married to multiple brothers, and hence it is not prohibited. So he says that. But still, Drupad and Drishtyadumna are not completely convinced. So Vyasmuni comes at that point, and he says, no, you don't worry. This is how it was supposed to be. And he tells them a story of their past. There are two stories. There is one story of the Pandavas actually being 5 Indras at different point in time. And Draupadi as the roop of Lakshmi, who is supposed to marry them. So that is one incident, one story he tells them. And the other story he tells them is about Draupadi, who in the previous Janma is praying to Shivji that I want a husband, I want a husband. And she says this 5 times. And Shivji says that, okay, now you'll be a wife to 5 husbands. And she says, no, but I don't want to be wife to 5 husbands. But he said, no, you asked me 5 times and I've said yes all the time. So this is how, so there is a background to it as well. But for me, the more interesting part is what Yudhishthir says, that it is not prohibited by Shastras and there are precedences. So even though it is not common, it is not prohibited. And if you see, Aditya ji, even today in certain communities, especially in the hilly regions, I think in Himachal and some other places as well, there are communities where this practice still goes on and the lady has immense respect for this arrangement as well, because it's common in those specific communities. So this is my understanding of this episode.
No, you have exactly quoted Mahabharata, is exactly mentioned there. And like I said in the beginning, that simply thinking of Draupadi. Now, I will go back to the protagonists, the opposers of this view, and the social moralists who have no understanding about anything. I call them fake Abrahamic inspired moralists. Now, they will ask this kind of question. So in the all these moralists or mythologists, they always bring question. And if you become like the Indian anchors, they would always like to take out that another side of it. So how do we debunk these people who use such low words for Draupadi? And when Yudhishthir is approving it, Vyasdev is approving it. Vyasdev, in fact, asks Yudhishthir, you are the son of Dharmaraj, and you know what is the code of conduct. According to you, what is your opinion? And Vyasdev is the authority here. He's in the middle, sitting there. So if people, if you accuse Vyasdev of partiality, that means there is something seriously wrong in terms of the person you are reading his historical account. If everything else is true, then how can this not be true? And Drupad and Drishtadumna agree to it. So now father and brother have also agreed to this marriage. So it was not just because Kunti said it, it was not divided.
No.
There's a huge discussion after that. So how do we debunk these social moralists who work on the mythological aspect, inspired by Max Muller and Western academics?
Well, I think if we read the Mahabharata itself, it is clear, right? It's very clear that Draupadi is married to 5 husbands. Achha, the other thing is beyond Mahabharata, right? Draupadi, as actually you mentioned in the beginning, Aditya ji, it is believed that just by thinking about Draupadi, one gets purified. Why would anybody say that if she was given a low stature or something like that? One. Second, she is considered a Pancha Kanya or a Pancha Sati. So amongst the 5 greatest women in the Indian Shastras, that is also Draupadi. Now, what happens sometimes is that, so I think there are 2 categories of people here. One is who say that, she was married to 5 husbands, hence she was, a loose woman. Basically, what then Karna was calling her. Karna calls her a bandiki because he's like, she's the one who's married to 5 husbands. Women are not married. One woman cannot have multiple husbands, so she's a prostitute. In the entire Mahabharata, Karna is the only one, the one and the only one who uses these words for Draupadi. Nobody else ever uses this word. So everybody else has accepted this marriage. Nobody ever looks down upon Draupadi for that. So throughout Mahabharata, except Karna, everybody has accepted. That's the other thing. But then there is another set of people, which I have heard many times, who say that actually this itself is an interpolation and she was married only to one husband, to either Yudhishthir or either Arjun. That is what some people say. To them, I want to say that whatever available manuscripts we have, it is extremely clear that she is married to 5 husbands. You might want to read it some other way. You might say that I don't want to accept this shloka or whatever. But the number of times it has come, it is impossible to say that it is a later interpolation. Also, you find it in K.M. Ganguly, you find it in Gita Press, you find it in Bhandarkar Oriental. All these manuscripts or all these versions which are based on manuscripts that have been found talk about it. So I think we don't want to sometimes accept it because of the current social norms, which are sort of which make us decide this is good and this is bad, this is high character, this is low character. It was not the situation then, and it's very clear in Mahabharat throughout. She was married to 5 people, and she got immense respect for the role she played as the wife of the Pandavas and as the queen of Indraprastha and as the Kulavadhu of the Kauravas and Pandavas of the Kaurav clan.
The social moralists, they ultimately they say Vyasdev, there is not one Vyasdev, there is a later Vyasdev. There are many other Vyasdevs. There are 10 different Vyasdevs. There are different logic they start giving you, because they some of the time, most of the times, these people cannot go back to the text and read the original text. Like I always say, it's a derived information. We are not creating that information. It is already derived. Now, second, another aspect is Drupad's armies. Now, Drupad's armies were the most powerful armies in that region, and Pandavas were still in exile. They were running away to protect their lives, and this marriage, which was arranged by Vyasdev, and Drupad wanted her to marry Arjun, and this was practically arranged kind of thing, but not in today's sense, but it was arranged. But so the another aspect was to win back the alliance of a very powerful king, to maybe get the kingdom back. What is your view on that, according to Master?
So I instead of telling my view, I'll tell what Mahabharata says here, and this actually comes from a discussion between Duryodhan, Karna, and Shakuni. So initially, Duryodhan had tried to burn the Pandavas in Varnavrat, right? With Kunti, he has tried to burn them, the whole Purochar incident, but they survived. At the time when the Swayamvar happens and all Duryodhan and everybody is there, they don't realize that these guys who are dressed as Brahmins are actually the Pandavas. Anyway, so afterwards, when they come to know, when the Pandavas are married, and it's become public information now that the Pandavas are alive, they are not dead, and they are married to Draupadi. This gang starts scheming again. Ki kya kare? How do we now, somehow either kill the Pandavas in certain way, or we try to break them? Yeah, we try to create some discontent within the Pandavas, or we'll try and create discontent amongst Draupadi and the Pandavas, so Draupadi leaves them. Because one thing which has happened, which they all understand, is that with Draupadi, now the Pandavas are no more alone. They have the backing of a Sasural like Panchal, which is a very strong Khandan, which is a very strong, as you mentioned, the Somakas, who are the Somakas and the Drupad's armies, right? The armies, they are very powerful. So they are thinking now what to do. So at that time, Karna says, see, Draupadi was not even aware who these people were when she agreed to marry them in the Swayamvar. She goes with them, not even knowing who they are. They are staying in a potter's hut, in a kumbhar's house they are staying. Still, she didn't mind. Still, she was happy at that time. Now, when she knows that these are Pandavas, there is no way she is going to leave them. So he is responding to this idea of Shakuni and Duryodhan that he'll separate Draupadi from the brothers. Yeah. And he says, you can't do that, because she was with them even when they were in such, poor conditions, and she didn't leave them. Now there is no way she is going to leave them at all, knowing that they are Pandavas. One. Second, Karna says, Ekasyam patnyam ye rataha na parasparam bhindyate. The Pandavas are now invested in this one woman. They all love her, this one woman. So now creating discontent between them is not possible. And third, the Drupad, so the Panchals are not going to leave Yudhishthir at all now, because they have also found a very capable Jamai in the form of the Panch Pandavas. And Yudhishthir anyways is not weak anymore, because he has the backing of the Pandavas. And it's very clear, Karna is saying this, that Yudhishthir now has backing of of this huge Drupad's kingdom. So there is no way he's weak anymore. And if we have to now fight, we have to fight them headlong. We cannot be doing such small schemes and trying to take away their kingdom, because now they've become very powerful. So this is a view coming from the other side itself. That yes, this marriage, Vyas Muni making this marriage happen definitely could have had this consideration.
Draupadi was practically now one of the important things come in, that the Draupadi was practically unseen by the whole world other than the Pandavas and the close immediate family. Plus, she's also said to be a warrior princess. She was good in fighting. Do you find any references of that in Mahabharata?
Not that I have come across. So I have not seen any fighting instant where she is doing, but her one is actually fighting, the other is having that kshatriyata as a quality, which she definitely has, and we see that immensely when they are in the Vanvas, because every now and then the way she talks to Yudhishthir about how he should be, how he should not just sit satisfied, how he should be doing his kartavya. Acha, and one image people have is that she's always cribbing and complaining and pushing Yudhishthir and the other Pandavas to fight, fight, fight. Actually, if we see the way it is given in Mahabharata, of course she is asking them to fight, but the way she is saying is not out of this anger and revenge mode. She says something very interesting. She says that come what may, a person has to be doing his or her job. And she says a good king should know when to forgive and he should know when to punish. So she's talking in terms of nyaya. She's talking in terms of niti all the time. Whatever be the situation, be it the Vanvas. So even in the Vanvas, as I said, she's actually teaching, or sorry, not teaching, she's discussing with Yudhishthir about how a king has to behave, when he should punish, when he should forgive. She's also telling him the karma siddhanta. She says it's possible that what we want will not happen. It is possible we might lose. However, Manu has said that we should still do our karma. Kartavyam karma, what has to be done must be done without being upset about it. Then we will see what Daivat has in mind. But what we should do, we must do. And hence, our hard-earned kingdom of Indraprastha, it was Khandavaprastha. You all made it. You all have made it. And you should definitely fight to get your hug back in the right way. That is one. The other instance is during the Vastraharan itself. Yeah, the Vastraharan episode, this woman is not crying and cribbing. She's not saying, "Are re re, protect me, are re re, what is happening to me," all that. Of course, she's very upset. Of course, she's angry. Of course, she's upset with what's going on. But there also, she's talking about nyaya. She's talking about niti. She's like, no, first you tell me, jitam va api ajitam. Am I won or am I lost? If a person has lost himself already, then can he claim ownership of anything else? So if he's lost himself already, how can he stake me again? Yeah. So whether that argument was right or wrong is a different thing altogether. But even at that time, she's talking about nyaya and niti, and she is not begging in front of anybody. That comes again during that incident itself, when eventually, when Draupadi is very angry and Gandhari and even Vidur, they tell Yudhishthir, they tell Dhritarashtra, enough, stop your son from doing this. And there are these omens, there are these jackals howling and the birds making noise, which are considered to be bad nimitta, not good nimitta, not auspicious nimitta for Hastinapur. So Dhritarashtra is a little afraid, and he tells that, no, I want to give everything back to the Pandavas. And he says, you are like my putri, you are my putra vadhu to Draupadi. He says that to Draupadi. So you ask whatever you want. And Draupadi asks the first wish of hers, and she says, you please release Yudhishthir from Dasatva. So you release him from Dasatva. That is her first yay. And the second wish she asks for is that let the other 4 Pandavas also release them also along with their astra. Dhritarashtra says, ask for one more wish. And she says, no. As a Kshatriya woman, I can ask for only 2 wishes, which I have asked. Anything more than that would be lobha. And what happens? Through lobha is the nashak of dharma. Lobho dharma nashaya. By greed, my dharma will be nashta, so I don't want anything else from you. I asked what I should do. My husbands needed me at that point, so I have ensured I have freed them. Now, whatever else we need in life, Bhadrani Vetsyanti, all the good things they will get how? Punyena karmana. Mama pataya punyena karmana bhadrani Vetsyanti. Whatever belongs to them, they'll get it through their good deeds. I don't want anything else. That again shows her not even pride, her self-respect, her kshatriyata, that spirit of fighting in her. So just some examples of that.
No, very well quoted from different aspects here, because that's exactly what is written in by Vyasdev. The another important thing which most of the people accuse is, why did Yudhishthir put her on the wager? Now, the answer is given by Yudhishthir also, and answer is given by Draupadi also. And Draupadi also affirms that, tells Shakuni that he doesn't know how to play gambling. He's not expert. And Yudhishthir is playing just because of his father's words, because Dhritarashtra was the father, who was ordered by him. And out of deep respect, he was playing. And there is an instance where Yudhishthir also tells Shakuni that it is a bad habit.
Yes.
And he tells him, and he also knows it, that he's going to play some tricks over there. Everything is being known. But here the response of Draupadi and the, I call it testimony by Draupadi, is more powerful here. Draupadi says her husband doesn't know how to play it. He's, gambling is a sport, not a habit for him. So what do you want to say on Yudhishthir's character from Draupadi? And then we'll come to the Kshatriyata, where we talk about where she becomes angry that why Yudhishthir is not taking action. And Yudhishthir asks her to be patient, because now it's the time to wait 12 years in the forest to prepare against the Duryodhana's armies. So go ahead, please.
So in that episode, right, of Vastraharan, I think, as you mentioned, it's very interesting. People say that, oh, Yudhishthir was completely into playing. He was addicted to gambling, and hence he said, I will play. So this doesn't seem to be the case, because clearly when Vidur comes to invite Yudhishthir, telling him that Dhritarashtra has invited you for a game of dice, for Dyuta Krida. Even at that time, Yudhishthir says that Dyuta is known to create klesha in family. It is known to create division in the family. It's known to create discontent in the family. So ideally, it shouldn't be played. So Vidur tells him, then you take your call. If you don't want to come, you refuse. But Yudhishthir is thinking that now that my uncle has called, he looks at Dhritarashtra as his father figure only, right? So he thinks my uncle has called, how do I say no? So he agrees to go. Okay. Now see, a lot of things which we say that he should have agreed or not agreed is all in hindsight. At that point when he agreed to play, even if he had an inkling that there is something wrong, he really did not know to what extent it could have gone. Okay. So he agrees to play at that time. So when they come in the hall and the Dyut Krida is about to start, there also Shakuni tells him something about, oh, come, let's play and stuff like that. And there also Yudhishthir says that do not glorify this game. It is not a game that needs to be glorified or anything. So don't make a big deal out of it. Ideally, we should not be playing this. And Shakuni at that time says, oh, okay, so do you want to back out? And, there then being a Kshatriya, he says, no, now that I have been invited, I will not back out. But even there, he doesn't know that Shakuni is going to play. So first Duryodhan, when Shakuni starts throwing the game, the dice, there also he says, "Arey, but how is Shakuni throwing the game dice?" And Duryodhan says, "Oh no, he's playing from my side. If you don't want to play, that's a different thing." And then Yudhishthir is like, "No, okay." So at every point in time, he has raised a concern that whatever is going on is not right. Okay, now till that point is okay. Now when the game starts, he already knows something is going wrong, and he keeps losing and losing and losing and losing. He loses his entire Rajya, he loses his entire wealth, he loses all the brothers, he loses himself. Now, of course, all that was done in a lot of mental stress, not to defend him or anything. But that's the thing, right? Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha. When you are in so much stress, when you are losing and losing and losing, it's like this gambler who wants to play that one game and get back all that he has lost. And actually, Shakuni plays that game on Yudhishthir. So after Yudhishthir loses himself, Shakuni says, now what? So he says, now I have nothing at all. I'm totally nirdhan. There is nothing I can stake. So what do I do now? And Shakuni says, no, you are not nirdhan. You have something. He says, Draupadim Panasva Punarjaya. You have Draupadi who is so good. You stake her and you win everything else. Okay. Now you see at that point, Yudhishthir's situation is such that he actually has no other way. He's become a das. Okay. He has become a das, and frankly, by that itself, Draupadi has also become a dasi. Right? If he has become a das, because what happens to Draupadi otherwise? Does she stop being their wife? That is not the case. So he still goes ahead, but when he starts taking Draupadi, there is this entire episode or an entire description on he wants to shake the courtiers in the court, saying that see what is happening. He's making me stake whom. He goes on to describe the beauty of Draupadi. He goes on to describe the virtues of Draupadi, so that everybody there feels something that something wrong is going on here, and eventually he stakes her, and of course he loses at that point. So even when he loses, and Duryodhan and Karna, they want to get her in the Sabha because she's now a Dasi and stuff, all that is still going on. And Draupadi is pulled. So we know all that episode. I'm not going into detail. In Gita Press edition, especially in Gita Press edition, and I think it's in KM Ganguly as well, possibly not in Puri. So in K, you have that when initially Draupadi had refused to come, through his own trusted servant or her own trusted person, Yudhishthir sends a message to Draupadi that you please come crying and howling, so that people have some sympathy, at least, somewhere their Atma will rise at what is going on and they'll start speaking, because till then, except Vidur, nobody has been speaking. So anyways, but Gita Press has it and KMG I think has it. Bori doesn't have this part, but I'm stating it anyways. And anyways, when Draupadi comes and all this happens, as Aditya very rightly said, she says this, Yudhishthir is a novice. He doesn't know how to play. So actually the fault is in all of you that you let this game go on like this. This was not right at all. And even Vikarna, he says this. He says, there are 4 situations where any decision taken in these 4 situations actually doesn't hold. One he says when a person is drunk, or when a person is scared in a fighting, or when he's gone hunting or something like that, and in a gambling match. If any decision that a gambler takes does not really hold, because at that time the buddhi itself has become very sammohic. So he also says that, and as you rightly mentioned about Draupadi, she also says that it is not right whatever you people are doing. And anyways, if Draupadi had not come there, and she had not spoken what she had, and she had not challenged everybody there, what would have been the outcome of the situation? Again, not to defend the situation. The situation was terrible. It should not happen to any woman. I think that was the lowest point of Mahabharata, whatever happened to Draupadi there. But had it not happened, then we don't know what would be, right? What would have been the situation? The Pandavas would have become slaves to Kauravas for their entire life, because nobody was taking their side anyways. Everybody was just quiet. They had lost all their shastras and everything, right? So we can only guess what the situation would have been if this whole Vastraharan situation wouldn't have happened.
So, no, very good points here, because now coming back to so Draupadi saved Pandavas in the first gambling match, and because of which Pandavas got their weapons back. And when they were going back, again Dhritarashtra called them based on the insistence of Duryodhan to play again. Now people do not know the second part. They do not see the second part. Why is being called back? And despite all the brothers telling him not to go, Yudhishthir says something very important. It's again the order of my father. And he comes back as if by force. And he knew what is going to happen. And there was only one dav put by the Shakuni. So people do not know what was Draupadi's reaction after that. And where Draupadi, when they go out and they come to a place where Draupadi, when they're sitting near the banks of Yamuna, she chastises him, like you said, Kshatriya Bhav. And literally, she's angry and she uses strong words, not the high tone, maybe the strong words. And Yudhishthir responds very patiently. He's listening to the whole time. He doesn't speak anything. So it speaks a lot about Yudhishthir's character. What is your view on this? And what is Draupadi's role here? Because she's the principal queen. If she doesn't guide the king, then who is going to talk to the king? Nobody has the power other than the brothers, including even more than the brothers, other than Bhim. Nobody spoke much to Yudhishthir.
Exactly.
But she had the power to do that because she was the main queen. So what is your view on Draupadi's character here?
So definitely, right? So first thing, when the Vanvas happened, all other queens had gone back. Pandavas were married to many other queens, right? They all went back to their Maikas. If Draupadi would have wanted to go back and stay in Panchal, nobody would have stopped her. But she didn't. She stuck with the brothers at that time and she insisted that she goes. So she went. The other reason was exactly this, because she wanted to ensure that Pandavas never forget their kartavya. Again, it is coming from the kartavya bhav. As I was saying even before, right, that the whole Kshatriya spirit in her, the way she talks to Yudhishthir, it is something amazing. It is not, she doesn't say, oh, no, take revenge. No, take revenge. Of course, she says that whatever has happened to me, you can't forget it. That also she says, especially towards the end, after the end of 13 years, she says that as well. But in the Vanvas, she's not saying that. She's saying, you are a Kshatriya, you are a Raja, you have to be doing your karma. And without doing karma, there is not going to be any fal. Fal can be of any type. You might win, you might lose. But without arambha, anarambha na phalam, na gunam na phalam, anarambhe. If you don't start itself, you are not going to win. No fal will come out of it. Win loss is afterwards, after you start doing something. So she actually explains to him the entire karma siddhanta and everything. And as I was saying, she also says that a Raja has to know when to be angry and he has to know when to forgive. Only by forgiving, nobody is going to care for that Raja. The people will take him for granted. Hence, a king, to ensure his authority as well, and to ensure that dharma rules, he needs to be strong, he needs to be angry, and he needs to give punishment as well. In fact, even in the end, when the Pandavas and Krishna, they are negotiating with Duryodhan, saying that only 5 gaon de do. We are okay with 5 gaons, and that is it. If the war can stop, we are happy taking that. So even at that time, when Krishna is going to do the negotiations, Draupadi says that you might go and negotiate. I am not against that. But remember that don't settle for anything less than Indraprastha. That is just not fair if you settle for less than Indraprastha. Indraprastha, we should get back. And she says, it is adharma to kill somebody who doesn't deserve to die. So if a person is innocent and if you kill that person, then killing that innocent person is adharma. However, if a person deserves to die, if a person is a criminal, not killing that person or not punishing that person is also adharma. So this is also what Draupadi says. Now coming to Yudhishthir, yeah. So being Yudhishthir is not easy actually at that point. It's very easy to be angry. It's very easy to say, no, I'll go and fight. And even not only Draupadi, even Bhim is telling him that we have to go fight. Sometimes 13 days is equal to 13 years. So we have finished 30 days. We have finished 13 months. We should go back and fight. And Yudhishthir tells him something very interesting. He says, for doing any work, if you want to be successful in anything you do, you have to do it after a lot of planning and after a lot of thinking through. Sunishchaya, suvikrantam, sukrutam. You have to do it after having thought through everything. Today, we think that we will go and fight the Kauravas, but do you realize what the outcome of that would be? Because while the sympathies of Dronacharya, Bhishma, all these people, their sympathies might be with us. However, when a war happens, all these people are going to be on the side of Duryodhana. One. Second, we have just finished the Rajasuya Yagna. We have defeated many kings of Bharat. Clearly, all these kings are also not going to be on our side. They will all support Duryodhana. Are we prepared to take on a war like that? Not to say that you and Arjuna and everybody is weak, but we are not ready. We are not prepared to face a war like that. We have to first prepare ourselves. And it is after that on Vyasamuni's advice, he actually sends Arjun to get the Divyastra from Indra. Yeah? So that's the time he sends him. So for a king, taking such a big decision is never easy. It requires a lot of dhairya and a very stable buddhi to be able to take that decision. Of course, he says that whatever I did was wrong. My buddhi had become mohit. What I did was very wrong, and it's because of me that you all have fallen into this trouble. He says that as well. He accepts that. That is why he never tells Bhim that, oh, how dare you, my younger brother, how dare you talk to me like that. Not once he tells Draupadi that, how dare you talk to me like this. In fact, Draupadi says that, that I will tell you what I have to tell you, and keeping a good mind. Sumanaha, with a good mind, you have to listen to me, and I will do vilap also, and you have to listen to me. And Yudhishthir listens. So that is the character of Yudhishthir, the balanced one who can still think through when he needs to think through, except for that part where in gambling his buddhi has become over because of the situation, the way it has progressed.
One striking thing comes in the mind nowadays. The most of the discussion is on left and the right, which is against a bad French philosophy. But our discussion, if you see Draupadi's discussion, Kunti's discussion, Satyavati's discussion, and I'm only taking the women's name here, always been around dharma and adharma. What is dharma? What is adharma? And that's why I have written that article. We are neither left nor right. We are dharmic, because we have to take that common judicial position where we are fixed. Now, one interesting thing she says that any of the Pandavas can defeat all the Kauravas. Any of the Pandavas. She doesn't even say one husband over the other. Even though the strength, the most powerful was Arjun, but others were not weak. They were also equally very powerful. So, so what do you have to say on that dharma versus adharma? Because it teaches us a lot of things. Women have a very important role in the Vedic culture or the Hindu culture, and which is sometimes minimized because the Western academics have always viewed women as objects. Here, Draupadi is the advisor to Yudhishthir. She is not just talking. Like if you read the entire discussion, then it is, that one word is used. We use a lot. Dharmo rakshati rakshita. She quotes it.
Yes.
She quotes it, and
Yes, she quotes.
she quotes from Veda. So she was learned also, very well learned, educated, and she knew how to defend if need be. And she had a backing of one of the most powerful armies of the region, Drupad's armies. And her brother was also born from Agni, Drishtidumna. He was as fiery as Agni. So very powerful lady. But she's talking about dharma and adharma. And one incident when the Draupadi was brought to that Kumhara's house, all the 5 brothers are there. And the one thing, she is in the evening, the sleeping position is also mentioned in Mahabharata, which side she is lying down and which side she is up. There she hears the discussion, and the spies of Drupad also hear the discussion of the Pandavas about the arms and the strategies, and normally warriors will discuss that. So dharma and adharma concept we have forgotten, and even today, where it is our time to educate our women that sometimes standing up and fighting for against adharma is dharma, but that guidance is not there. What do you have to say on the mythologists who ignore this aspect of Draupadi?
Actually, I think what the mythologists they ignore is they just don't understand the concept of dharma to start with. Yeah, because dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, the number of times this line has come in Mahabharata is innumerable. So many people have said this. Yudhishthir has said this. Draupadi said this, as you said. Vyas Devji said it. Dharmo rakshati rakshataha has come so many times. It's all about dharma. That is why the yuddha itself is called a dharma yuddha. It is not any war. There have been multiple wars that have happened, but nothing that is called dharma yuddha. What is dharma? And that is why in Mahabharata Unraveled, in the book itself, the first chapter, the introduction, I start with what is dharma. That is the name of the chapter. Because unless and until we understand dharma, we will keep going back into this black and white of Arey, isko galti, he killed him unjustly and he broke the rule of war and stuff like that. We'll keep getting entwined into these small details which actually are misleading. The same thing of why do we worry about the human rights of terrorists and not about the rights of the army men? who are actually protecting us, but we stand for the human rights of terrorists because our concept of dharma is skewed. Now, what is dharma? So the definition is dharayati iti dharma. Dharanat dharma iti ahu dharmo dharayati praja. Basically, it means dharayati, one that upholds, to sustain. We all talk about sustainability. Sustainability of what? Sustainability of the samaj that we are part of. The overarching principle that protects or that sustains the samaj, this society, which means you and me, that is dharma. All that needs to be done to protect that dharma which sustains us is dharmic. All that leads to unsustainability, that is adharmic. That is why Karna, Duryodhan, whatever they are doing, right? They want to take away things by force. They are bullies. They are driven from the base instinct of Kam, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. These base instincts, if everybody in the society starts living from that baser instincts, there will not be any sustenance. It will become like a Matsya Nyaya. The stronger will kill the weaker, and that's it. And the society will collapse eventually. That is why establishment of dharma matters, because when there is dharma, there is sustenance. When there is dharma, there is justice. When there is dharma, there is nyaya. All the women in Mahabharata have stuck to this concept of dharma. Be it Shakuntala, starting from the very beginning, the Shakuntala Dushyanta story, whose son is Bharat, and from Bharat we have this Bharat. So this Shakuntala talks of dharma, Savitri talks of dharma, as you said, Draupadi talks of dharma, Kunti talks of dharma. In fact, Kunti's life, if you see, it's a very one lady in Mahabharata who probably has never seen many happy days together. She was married to Pandu. Pandu dies, leaving her with the children after a few years. Yeah, and then she comes and lives in Hastinapur. Even in Hastinapur, there are constant attacks on her sons. Everybody's trying to, the Duryodhan and gang, they're trying to kill their sons. Then the Varnavrat happens. Then again in the forest. Then some good days after marriage to Draupadi and them getting back into the press, then again her kids are sent to Vanvas. When they are in Vanvas, and that time Krishna asks Kunti that what is the message you want to give Yudhishthir and the sons. And again there she's talking about Raj Dharma and how Raj Dharma entails Yudhishthir to fight and not just give in to injustice. There is an entire chapter. I have also, the Warrior Mother is the name of the chapter. I've covered that. But anyway, see, in the end, when Yudhishthir becomes the king, finally she has some happy days. However, when Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, after a few years, they want to go now to Vanvas. They are like, we are done with our lives. Now we will go and stay in the jungle. Kunti goes with them. She could have lived with their sons, but she's not living with them. She goes with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra. She says they are like my sas sasur, and I will take care of them. And while going again, she's saying this. The line she tells Yudhishthira is beautiful. She says, "Dharme te dhiyatam buddhi, manastu mahalastucha." Let your mind always be established in dharma. Draupadi has said, "Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha." Do that which protects dharma. That is what Draupadi says. Kunti says, "Dharme te dhiyatam buddhi." May your intellect, your intelligence always be established in dharma. These are the ladies of India. And actually, Yudhishthir acknowledged that when in Yaksha Prashna he's asked who is the best Sakha of Grahastha. He says a Bharya is the best Sakha of Grahastha. Sakha means equal. Sakha means somebody who can also give you advice, who can lead you to the right path. And that Bharya, the wife, is that Sakha. Draupadi has lived that role to the optimum throughout.
And she also warns the Kauravas that my husbands have the power to destroy all of you individually. And also she looks up to Bhim for his arm strength. And some mythologists argue that, and they always quote the Anta Leela of Pandavas when they go up, that when Dharmaraj says that she had more affection towards Arjun. And they all quote that but it is very natural for somebody to have a preference, very natural.
Absolutely.
So you cannot separate a human from that is the beauty of Mahabharata, actually, that where Mahabharata talks about everybody's emotions as well as everybody's dharma also. So but the mythologists, they often claim that she looks up to Bhim because Bhim is more powerful. And generally, it comes to the mind that people say they make it like as if there was only one warrior, but Pandavas were five like hands together, and their strength was Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir kept everybody together, and
Absolutely.
which is very much ignored but acknowledged by Draupadi. So when she says that, looks up to Bhim, and with with eyes, when she's asking the question to the entire Sabha, is it according to dharma or not? Am I being offered as per dharma? Is it dharmic or not? And everybody is quiet. So the reaction of assembly towards Draupadi's silence. Nobody speaks anything. Ultimately, Bhishma says the first line. It is very difficult to
Yeah.
decide
Dharma Paramagati. Yeah.
Paramagati. Very difficult to decide the conclusion of dharma. So the mythologists, they argue that dharma is a vague concept that even the Mahajan like Bhishma is not able to decide that. What is your view on that?
So dharma is also at multiple levels, right? One is the dharma, which is the principle of sustenance, as I just explained the meaning of dharma. In that particular case, what Bhishma is saying is something different, and it has to be understood in that particular concept. Uh, Bhishma is saying dharma paramagati. Why he's saying now? See, Bhishma is a very technical person. Okay, and it is his technicality which is making him say this, which I actually said some time back. He says that one, Yudhishthir himself knows dharma. Yudhishthir himself is aware of dharma, so if he has done something that will be aligned with dharma. However, as I said, there is a very interesting concept there, which even Bhishma says. He says it is correct that a person who has lost himself cannot stake anything else. He loses ownership over everything else. That is correct. However, this relationship of husband and wife is very interesting. Does a husband losing himself mean that the husband and wife relationship is gone? So now the dharma has to be seen in the context of the dharma of the husband and wife institute. What are we saying? Are we saying that a person who has lost himself, he is no longer a husband to that wife? Because what it also means is now the wife has no husband. She has nobody else to take. She cannot also accept this guy as his husband. This is the complicated part. Now the question one can ask Bhishma is that in that situation was so pathetic, to say the least. Did he have to go in the technicality, or was there another aspect that mattered more there? And there it was telling Duryodhan, Shakun, and everybody that what they are doing is wrong, telling Dhritarashtra that there is a concept of Manushya Dharma which they must follow first, and not treat a Kulvadhu, a Putravadhu like that, to not do Hanan of Stri Dharma like that. He could have said that. But the way Bhishma was, he went into the technicality of it. This is how I understand it. Now, people might have different views on this, Aditya. But when he talks about dharma, he's talking about the husband-wife relation and the relation of in the larger context of things.
No, very, very correctly said, because he knows so much. Then that's why he's putting all the brains behind. He cannot give black and white answer. And dharma is sometimes gray also, because
Yes.
sometimes, and it is always, dharma has always been decided, because that's why it's called law, in assembly by different experts. But here, all of them were looking up to Bhishma to answer. And coming to the Mahabharat war, and there's a lot more to cover here on Draupadi. She had five sons from all the five Pandavas who were killed mercilessly by Ashwatthama. And her reaction is really like you said, Chatrani. Like she's composed, no tears are flowing. Obviously, her eyes, she's a mother, she will have some emotions, but she was not apparently showing that. And there is an instance where the Shoka is there, that she was crying also, which is very natural. But her reaction is very clear. She says, do not leave people who have done this. And also she says, do not punish the Brahman. Like both the things she says. So
Yeah.
is your analysis on that?
Yeah. So in that incident, right, like she's a mother. Obviously, she is devastated when her sons are killed. And she says, I want a fair retribution. Somebody who has done such a cruel deed. Now, see, the sons have not died in a war. They were sleeping. It was a cheating. It was a deception that was done at night when the kids were sleeping. They did not even get a chance to retaliate. Had they died in a war, it would have been a different thing altogether. And hence she said, the person who has done this, which is Ashwathama, should be punished for what he has done. The Bhim and the other Pandavas and Krishna, they go, and we know that episode that Krishna punishes him and he takes out uh, the gem that is studded. It is said that it is studded in Ashwathama's head, and they say you live for 3,000 years, live with this festering wound which will never heal, and you live in this pain, and then they come back, and then Draupadi is told that we've punished him, but we've not killed him because he's our guru's son. And Draupadi says, fine, I have gotten my closure. I wanted you to punish him. He is your guru's son. By that relation, he is even my guru's son. So I completely understand. And I do not mind it at all. I only wanted him to be punished for the crime he did. But I understand he cannot be killed. You cannot kill him. And by that relation of your guru's son, he's my guru's son. So this is enough for me. I will now get closure for this. And she moves on in life, in spite of having lost 5 sons there in the war, and Abhimanyu, who also she considered very close to her. She lives for the next other years, how much ever they live, till for the 36 years, till they leave for Himalayas. She is serving everybody, including the widows of Kauravas. They are all in Hastinapur, right? She's serving Gandhari, Dhritarashtra, and all the widows of Kauravas also she's taking care of. This is what we read in Mahabharata. In fact, as I talk about it, I'm reminded of another incident which I think is very important when we talk about Draupadi. It is called the Draupadi Satyabhama Samvar, and this occurs in the in a Vanaparva. So what happens is when all Pandavas and Draupadi are in Vanvas, Krishna and Satyabhama come to visit her, to visit them, sorry. And the Pandavas and Krishna, they are talking, and Satyabhama and Draupadi start talking. And when they are talking, Satyabhama asks her that how is that these Pandavas are completely in your wash, they are completely in your control, they keep looking at you as they are like, so the word they use is Tava 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 Vashya Mukha Prekshaha. So they are completely in your control and they keep looking at you with so much love. So what jadoo have you done on them? What magic have you done on them? Is there a mantra? Then tell me also that mantra. That way I will also keep Krishna in my vash, in my control. And Draupadi tells her, it's a long dialogue and I would request all of you to read it, the Draupadi Satyabhama Samvar. If not in Mahabharata, then read it in Mahabharata Unraveled. I have described that. So she says there is no mantra. It's very simple. I do all my duties as expected of me. I take care of all the husbands. I ensure that I do not miss out on any responsibility towards them, right from morning till night. I do not miss out on any responsibilities towards my other relatives, my mother-in-law, all of that. But that is one part of her being a wife. There is other part of Draupadi being the queen of Indraprastha. And she describes her role as the queen of Indraprastha. It is like, how we have the chief administrative officer. She's taking care of everything, right from ensuring there were like 1 lakh people who would eat in their palace every day, ensuring there was enough food cooked, ensuring that all the guests, and these were like students, these were people who were not differently able, Vaman Kubjaha, that was the word used. All these type of people would come and eat there. And she would ensure she would eat only after every single person who was supposed to eat had eaten. She knew every single helper in the household, in the big palace. There were like 1 lakh helpers. She knew each and every one by name. She would follow up on them as well. She would ensure that even they were taken care of and they had eaten. She was in charge of treasury as well. She had complete view on what was being spent, what was coming in. If say Yudhishthir had to go on a travel, had to go visit some other Raja or whatever, she would keep track of what all is going with him, how many of all animals are going with him, all the preparations are done or not. From morning to night, she would be busy with the work she was doing. And Draupadi says that it is because of all this that they respect me, because of the role uh, I fulfill, not only as a wife but also as the queen of Hastinapur. And then when Vaishampayan is telling Janmajay about Draupadi, he also says that this is the woman. She would work so hard that after everybody had eaten, during the Rajasuya Yagna, after everybody had eaten, she would eat. After every single person there had eaten. And Yudhishthir says that she would sleep after everybody had slept and she would wake up even before everybody had woken up. So this was Draupadi. And this is an interesting part of Draupadi which is not spoken about this much. That's Draupadi Satyabhama Samvad.
Another important is now Krishna calls her Sakhi. So that is one reference there. Another is the when you look at the Draupadi's like laughing at Duryodhan, that incident is not there in Mahabharata.
No. So there is no Andhe ka putra andha. So these are some of the things which people must know. She doesn't say Andhe ka putra andha.
That's right.
She is not such a trivial lady. First, in fact, in Mahabharata, she is not even there when this incident has happened. When Duryodhan goes back to Dhritarashtra, he goes back to Hastinapur from Indraprasth. He also doesn't say that I was called Andhe ka putra andha or anything like that. Yeah. So this incident is not there. This is just added on in the, I think, TV series and maybe other novels or something that have been written. Second part, there is no love affair between Karna and Draupadi. Absolutely not. The Karna Draupadi affair, I don't know, it has been publicized through novels which have been written around Mahabharata, but there is absolutely no love angle between Karna Draupadi, not even between Krishna Draupadi. They are friends, they are fond of each other. Krishna and Krishna have a lot of bhav for each other, but there is no this, carnal love angle anywhere over there. Draupadi never says that get me Dushasan's blood and I will wash my hair with that. No, even this is not in Mahabharata. This comes from some other play that has been written, Vedi Samharat. And even in there, she is not saying that give me the blood, but she leaves her hair open and Bhishma, with his blood sullied hand, goes and ties her. But in Mahabharata, this episode is not there. So because her character is not that. Her character is very graceful. She's not somebody who will say things like Andhe ka putra andha or say that, oh, get me all the blood and I'll wash my hair with it. No, she's not like that. And no Karna Draupadi. Once again, I have to repeat, no Karna Draupadi love is there in Mahabharata.
Thank you for saying that so boldly, and it is the truth. If you read Mahabharata, but the another one aspect of people miss out on Draupadi. First of all, there are not enough we can cover in one program. It is a very deep topic for few people only because it's not for public consumption generally. But debunking myths we are just doing. So another myth said about Draupadi was that she was the one who created the Mahabharata war. She's the one who inspired Mahabharata war. And generally people say, while in the West it may be true that all wars are created over women, but Draupadi was not the person. Draupadi, in fact, wanted to follow the line of Yudhishthira and Krishna, whatever Krishna and Yudhishthira agree. So this is another myth we need to speak about, that why this notion is out there.
I think it's because of this, right? People create this episode of Draupadi saying Andhe ka putra andha. So they say he actually two things. Draupadi insulted Duryodhan and Draupadi insulted Karna. Because she insulted them, they insulted her back in that Vastraharan episode. And then she kept asking for revenge, leading to this war. It is almost as if nobody else is doing anything and only Draupadi is the one asking for a war and she is the one insulting all of them. Now, as we have discussed in the Karna episode, the Sutam no Varyami, it is not there in any, Gita Press talks about it, but in general, Gita Press also has a note saying that this seems like an interpolated part. This is not in, you don't find it in most manuscripts. Bori doesn't have it. Anyway, because out of the 1259 manuscripts that Bori had, for Adi Parva, 235 manuscripts they had, of which only 5 manuscripts spoke about Sutam na Varyami. And there are many other episodes which sort of say that she did not say. Even if she said it was her Swayamvar and she had the right to decide who she had to marry. One. Second, the Andhe ka putra andha doesn't happen only. She is not there. So if this is not there, if she has never insulted Duryodhan, then how can she be blamed for the war at all? Right in the beginning of Mahabharata, in Adi Parva, Vyasji has told us through Vaishampayar that this entire war was the creation of Duryodhan, who was this tree of rag, this greed, rag, lobha, matsarya, jealousy. This tree was at the root of it was Dhritarashtra, and the trunk of it was Karna, and the branches and the leaves are Shakuni and Dushasana. So nobody, not in Mahabharata, nobody has blamed Draupadi for the war. She was not the perpetuator. She had nothing to do with it, except being one who was completely insulted by Karna and Duryodhan to no end, for no fault of hers. And that is why she is also called the Panchakanya or the Panchasati, one of the greatest women in the Indian scriptures, right? A woman who caused such a big war will not be called so.
And ultimately, she was an emblem of peace, because in the end of the war, she never opposed Yudhishthir Maharaj doing Antya Samskar for all the Kaurava warriors who were killed. She never opposed it. If she was so envious, she would have opposed it, that they should not be given Antya Samskar. But she never.
She actually does seva of Gandhari and Dhritarashtra afterwards, right?
Exactly.
She didn't have to if she was so upset and so angry. But the 15 years that they lived with them, she was the one taking care of them.
Right. And Dhritarashtra also confirms it, that neither Pandavas nor Draupadi, and he in fact says that they were better than his own children. He says that. And that also proves that even Dhritarashtra is proving it. And Dhritarashtra in the end also admits, if it was not for the ambitious criminal activities of his own son, this massacre would not have happened. He said
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Amy. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And it's always good to see the right side of history coming out, Satology coming out, and mythology getting debunked. And there are many mythologists out there. And do read Ami Ganatra's book, Mahabharata Unraveled, and also mine, Yudhishthir, the Prana of Dharma. I don't not cover the whole Mahabharata. It's a big topic. I get into one small area and get into deep. But it all matches. Whatever I have said, you also said it. So the one last aspect is that the women's, now what we see from Mahabharata and Draupadi's character and Draupadi's personality is that women have always been held very high in the Vedic culture, whereas in Abrahamic culture, whether all three Abrahamic faiths, they all have kept women as an object, like the women were covered. But in Mahabharata, you don't see that. Men, all the rules of self-regulation apply to men only, no one else. And this is the important thing we do not teach our children, that men have to control their senses and women are supposed to be protected. What do you have to say on that?
Actually, this is a whole topic, Adityaji, because not just Draupadi, I think every woman character in Mahabharata, even the smaller ones, be it Hidimba, be it Ulupi, they are such strong, independent characters. They have chosen and lived life on their own terms. Now, I think what we must understand is that because we've been talking about dharma all the time, one thing which applies for all these people is that they lived their Stri dharma, they lived their Patni dharma. They did not, it's not as if that they did not fulfill those responsibilities which they had to. They did that as well, while speaking their mind when they needed to, while showing the right path to their partners when they had to. One of the greatest example is Shakuntala. I think we've spoken enough about Draupadi, so I'd rather talk about Shakuntala. So Shakuntala is, we know the story. Kalidas is Shakuntala in Abhignan Shakuntalam, and the actual Shakuntala in Mahabharata are very different. I have to say that. The actual Shakuntala is so feisty. When Dushyant refuses to recognize her, for whatever reason, the whole dialogue that she says is amazing. And she very clearly says, Ardha Bharya Manushasya, Bharya Shreshtatam Sakha. You cannot ignore and treat your woman like this, because what, she's your shreshtatam sakha. You have to treat a woman with respect. She bears you kids, she runs your household, and there is no way you can disrespect her, there is no way you can insult her. This entire dialogue between Shakuntala and Dushyant is a must read for everybody. She goes on to tell him that, have you ever seen yourself in the mirror? I mean, almost that. She's like, what are you comparing yourself to me? You are a liar who cannot even accept the truth. What are you telling me? And she says, you don't want, what will you tell me that whether you recognize me or not, I will go away, I don't care, I don't want to live with a liar like you. Yeah. So this whole discussion that she has, the whole outpour she has in the court of Dushyanta, and everybody is listening. Yeah, everybody is listening. Dushyant is also listening. Is worth knowing, to see what a worth of the woman was and what her character and her feistiness was. And all characters are like that in Mahabharata. Every single one, every single woman character. There is no bichari pala. Actually, not even in Ramayana for that matter. Even in Ramayana, the women characters are very strong.
We'll do a complete different show on the characters of different women, and
Yeah.
we'll do that in detail, because Kunti Maharani has a beautiful character, beautiful prayers.
Absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
And she says many things, that how she tells Krishna that I have grown up these children, and also the etiquettes which is mentioned in Mahabharata is remarkable. And no doubt Vaishampayan called it the Pancham Veda. Of that also people have a doubt. People think it is not Pancham Veda, it is no Pancham. So anyway, the mythologist version based on Wikipedia and Quora keeps on growing. But it's time for all of us to speak about it. So Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I could go on, and we both can enjoy, but others will have a lot of time problems. Namaste and thank you.
Namaste. Thank you so much.